My sister-in-law planned her wedding at my house without inviting me, but on her big day, the princess was stunned to find I had changed the locks. There was no wedding to be had. I'm 34 years old and have been following this sub for a long time. Recently, something has been weighing on me, and I could really use some outside perspective. I've read countless posts about sisters-in-law, hoping to find someone with a similar experience, but it seems like my situation is a bit unique. So, here I am, looking for advice. It's about my sister-in-law, which is precisely why I can't bring this up with my husband. Family dynamics can be tricky. Brittany, 27, is planning a wedding this spring, and she wants to have it at my house. Yes, you heard that right. Not to sound boastful, but I own a 4-bedroom home with a pool and a large garden. Since she's marrying an Irish guy, her family and relatives will need a place to stay when they visit for the wedding. My house, with its spacious living room and big backyard, seems like the perfect venue in her eyes. She envisions an outdoor wedding in the garden, followed by a reception inside. Now, the obvious question, am I okay with this? Honestly, I'm not sure. That's why I'm here. For some context, I'm Sarah. I've been married to Michael for 8 years. We met in college, dated for about 4 or 5 years, and then tied the knot. Michael didn't come from a wealthy background, but he's a hard-working, self-made man. His father, Bob, worked as a day laborer, and his mother, Linda, took on occasional jobs. Unlike my husband, who earned his master's degree, Brittany dropped out of college and still doesn't work. At 27, she continues to live with my in-laws, who not only provide for her, but also cater to her expensive whims, beyond what they can afford. She idolizes social media influencers who preach that degrees aren't necessary for success. Her parents never pushed her to finish school because, in their eyes, she's always known best. I find it baffling, given how I was raised. My parents, while well off, never spoiled my brother and me. Sure, we attended private school, call it a privilege if you want, but beyond that, they gave us no financial shortcuts. When we reached high school, my dad made it clear. We either earned scholarships or took out student loans, but college tuition wasn't coming from him. At the time, we thought he was being stingy. We worked hard, secured scholarships, and now, looking back, I appreciate his wisdom. It taught us independence, something I can't say about Brittany. Seeing her has only reinforced how crucial parenting is in shaping a person's life. When I landed my first job out of college, I went a little wild. Parties, vacations, the whole thing. Then my dad sat me down and pointed out some promising real estate options. I thought, finally, he's loosening his grip on money. But no, he wanted me to buy a house myself. He covered the down payment and walked me through the value of home ownership. His advice? Get a place early, rent out part of it to help with the mortgage. That's how I ended up with the home I have now, and I'm incredibly grateful for it, especially given today's housing market. As for my relationship with my in-laws, it's been fine, I suppose. We don't see each other often since they live on the other side of town, and I keep a busy schedule. I have a decent relationship with my mother-in-law, Linda. We talk about once a week, but Brittany and I, we're like night and day. She doesn't like me, and I don't lose sleep over it. When we first met, I encouraged her to finish school and find a job, but she saw that as jealousy. She believes I resent her because my parents abandoned me while hers still support her. The irony. What frustrates me most is that my in-laws constantly complain about their financial struggles, yet they continue enabling their grown daughter. My husband and I even offered to help her find an office job, but neither she nor my in-laws showed any interest. She refuses to work, and they're content footing the bill. Now, back to the wedding. There are a couple of reasons Brittany wants it at my house. First, the space. It's large enough to accommodate everything in one place, from the ceremony to the reception, with room for guests to stay over. The second reason? She can't afford a venue. Without my house, her only alternative is a courthouse wedding. She has no income, and my in-laws don't have the means to finance a big event. My husband, true to form, refuses to weigh in. He insists it's my house and my decision. That's one of the things I love about him. He respects my autonomy. So, here's my dilemma. Do you think I should allow her to use my house for her wedding? Update 1. The day after tomorrow is the wedding, and today I found out I'm not invited. The funny part is that the wedding is at my house. Let me start from where I left off last time. Yes, I agreed to let her use my house for the wedding. I was definitely worried about it, but eventually I agreed. Now I regret my decision. I'm furious. So, Please excuse me if I'm just venting. My sister-in-law, Brittany, is nothing but a woman who uses men for money in exchange for, you know what? She isn't even that pretty, and don't get me started on her lack of intelligence, but, once the lights go out, most men don't care about all that. She might be good at what she offers, which is why she was able to hit the nail on the head. That's what she calls her fiancé, the nail. Not only is she superficial, but she's also a liar. I found out that her Irish fiancé is quite well off. He works as a banker, and even his family is wealthy. So, to impress them, she lied, saying my house was theirs. I knew about this lie for a while, but I didn't care because, at the end of the day, it didn't affect me. When her fiancé proposed, she came to me and almost begged me to let her use my house for the wedding. As if that wasn't enough, my in-laws also came begging. They said that if I didn't agree, they might have to take out a loan to finance the wedding. I told them, why can't she and her fiancé finance it? My in-laws said that, traditionally, the bride's parents pay for the wedding, and the Irish follow this tradition more strictly than we do. I don't know how true this is, so please don't judge me for it. Those aren't my words. Plus, my sister-in-law, Brittany, had already bragged to her fiancé and his family about the big house that could host a wedding. Her stupidity made me laugh. I said, what if I don't allow the wedding in my house? I mean, I can do that, right? Don't you think she should have asked me first before committing to this with her fiancé? My in-laws nodded and asked me to safeguard their reputation. I told them I would, but they should have done a better job raising their daughter. You see, I don't sugarcoat my words, and maybe that's why they think I'm arrogant. They don't understand that I say this for their own good. You know what happened next? They came to my house until I agreed to this. At one point, I thought it's just a matter of 2 days. Let's get this over with. And yes, some people asked in the last post if she offered to pay rent. No, all of this happened 3 months ago when I made the original post. Fast forward to 2 days ago. My sister-in-law, Brittany, arrived with Bob and Linda, my in-laws, and 2 other men. I was at work. I saw this on the camera installed inside. They have a motion sensor. I called her and asked what was going on. She said those guys were wedding planners. They were here for a site visit to plan the wedding accordingly. I asked her to be careful with my things. She assured me she would. After paying off my mortgage last year, I got rid of the tenants who occupied my 2 upstairs rooms. I took leave from work to prepare 2 rooms for them. I hired a cleaner for the task. It's a huge house to clean all by myself. Today, my sister-in-law, Brittany, showed up at 6 o'clock in the morning while we were still sleeping. She was leaving for her bachelorette party in the next town. She was here to see if everything was properly prepared. She was happy to see that I had prepared 2 rooms for them and rented a larger dining table for tonight's dinner. Then she walked around the house saying, okay, those 2 rooms are ready for my in-laws, Bob and Linda. Mom and Dad will take our room, and I'll take the room with the walk-in closet. Wow, I'm so excited to show them my big house with all these fancy things. I can't wait to see their amazed expressions. When I gave her the house, I was confused. I mean, where do we fit in? The rest of the conversation went like this. Sorry, I'm confused. If your parents take our room, where do we go? She answered, well, I don't know. You can go to your parents' house or maybe check into a hotel for 2 days. You both earn well. I'm sure you can afford it. To which I responded, but why do we have to move out of our own house? And with a mocking tone, she said, because to them it's my parents' house, remember? And you can't live here. It would be very weird for a married brother and his wife to live with my parents. I felt dizzy after that conversation. How? What the hell? So you're going to make it look like this is your parents' house and you live here like a princess? I was already pretty angry. I put on a serious face and asked, so, according to your fairy tale, where do we live in case your in-laws ask us? Oh, they won't. I mean, how would they? You won't be here, right? And what about our stuff, our pictures? Who would know they are your things? I'll tell them everything is mine. The only problem is the photos in your hallway. We'll have to take them down before they arrive. I sighed and asked, so even if we vacate the house to uphold your facade, we'd still see them at your wedding, right? What if they ask us then? I asked this sarcastically, but her responses left me stunned. No, there's a misunderstanding. You're not attending the wedding or the family dinner at all. I was like, what the hell? She continued, I'm not sure how this happened, but I never invited you to the wedding. Did my parents send you an invitation? I felt very stupid for talking to her. I screamed Michael, my husband's name, who was sleeping peacefully. I screamed so loud he ran out. I shouted, "Did you know we weren't invited to the wedding?" It seems his body was awake, but his mind was still asleep. "Whose wedding?" "Oh, yes, her wedding. We're not invited." "I mean, why?" I said, "Your sister said she didn't send us an invitation, so how could we assume we were invited? Let me understand the situation. I really don't get what's happening here." It took him a few minutes and a few repetitions to understand what had just happened. He was horrified that we weren't invited to the wedding she'd have at our house. My sister-in-law, Brittany, said, "Well, if that bothers you so much, you can attend and probably say your wife is sick and has to skip it." I asked what was her original reason to justify our absence. The woman had the audacity to laugh in my face and said, "Oh, you won't believe it. I told them my parents have estranged you because you're too toxic." I was like, "Wow, what else can I expect from you?" I angrily walked into my room without saying anything. It was useless to waste time talking to her. Michael, my husband, followed me and assured me it was still my decision if I wanted my consent. At this moment, I was too angry to think clearly. I need to calm down to make a rational decision. That's why I sat down to update here, thinking it might help. And it did. I feel much lighter, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give in to the princess's demands. I don't know what to do now, but I'm definitely not going to leave my house to participate in her web of lies, no matter what happens. I'll update this thread. You can count on me. Update 2. Hi guys, thanks for engaging with my posts. Yes, everyone was right in saying that the spoiled princess lives in a world of illusions. First of all, let me answer some common questions from the comments. How can my sister-in-law, Brittany, access my house in my absence? After I agreed to let her use it for the wedding, I gave her the spare key. The front porch, living room, garden, and pool area are all covered with cameras, so I felt okay sharing the spare key. Second, how is it possible that my sister-in-law's fiancé believed her lies that the house was hers? Didn't he visit her there at some point? I'm not sure. She's been dating him for less than a year. 2 weeks before the wedding, she brought him to my house to give him a tour while I was at work. After writing that update that day, I discussed my thoughts with Michael, my husband. Although he was on my side saying it was my decision, he was worried that if I backed out, his sister's wedding would be canceled and his parents' reputation would be ruined. I said, "Let's talk to your parents then." We went to their house. We told them about my sister-in-law's plan to exclude us from the wedding. Apparently, they already knew and seemed to be okay with it. Michael, my husband, lost his temper and said, "Did you know she was excluding us from her wedding and you agreed?" Linda, my mother-in-law, replied weakly, "We thought you both were okay with it. Neither of you asked us why you hadn't received an invitation." At this point, I questioned if we were wrong to assume we were invited to the wedding because it was my house. Michael, my husband, and I looked at each other in shock. Michael, my husband, yelled, "Do you realize there will be no wedding if she retracts her decision? What if we tell the truth to her in-laws?" Linda, my mother-in-law, panicked and asked us not to do such a thing. Bob, my father-in-law, intervened and kindly asked if it would be okay to attend the wedding if my sister-in-law sent us the invitation. Now I remained silent and did not respond because I was furious. Bob, my father-in-law, asked Linda, my mother-in-law, to call my sister-in-law and ask her to send the invitation immediately and apologize to her. Us. Linda, my mother-in-law, hesitated to call, but Bob, my father-in-law, gave her a stern look. Linda, my mother-in-law, called nervously. Bob, my father-in-law, told her to put the phone on speaker. My sister-in-law answered the call and scolded Linda, my mother-in-law, for bothering her during her spa session. Linda, my mother-in-law, said it was urgent and that Bob, my father-in-law, wanted her to invite my husband and me to the wedding. She got angry and said, "There's no way I'm inviting that witch. She thinks she's too smart." Linda, my mother-in-law, tried to stop her mid-conversation and whispered, "They are here with us." But the princess was too busy complaining. She said, "If she meets my in-laws, she'll outshine me. I want to look the prettiest on my wedding day. Besides, you know how she always talks about different things, jobs, careers, investments, and all that blah blah, to grab everyone's attention. I don't want that at my wedding. Everyone's focus should be on me. If she's around, she'll make me look like a fool, so no, she's not allowed at my wedding." And then she hung up. I screamed back, "I make you sound stupid because you are a fool," and I stormed out of the house. When Michael, my husband, got up to leave, Bob and Linda, my in-laws, asked him to calm me down, and said they would talk to my sister-in-law to make her apologize. Apologize, my ass. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law, Brittany, texted me saying I should remove our portraits from the hallway and move out of the house after supervising the preparations. Tomorrow, she said, my fiancé will arrive at the venue with his family at 10 o'clock in the morning, so get out before that. But make sure to leave my parents, Bob and Linda, there before the wedding planners are left alone. I will stay at my friend's house after the bachelorette party. I will head straight to the salon from here and arrive at the venue as a bride. Sure, Your Highness. I'm going to plan a perfect wedding for you. When we got home, it was already late in the afternoon. I called the locksmith and changed the locks of the house. Later that night, Michael, my husband, called Bob, my father-in-law, and told him that we would not allow the wedding at our house, so they better find another venue. He tried calling my sister-in-law, but she was busy getting drunk at her bachelorette party. Bob, my father-in-law, called back in a panic asking what he should do. Michael, my husband, suggested that if he wanted to save his reputation, he should call his guests and cancel the invitation, giving any suitable reason, because there was no way the wedding was going to happen on the scheduled bar and venue. The night was exciting, just imagining the expressions on my sister-in-law's face when the truth came out. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, on the day the wedding preparations started, the doorbell rang. It was the wedding planner. He was here to start the wedding preparations. I told him this was my house and there would be no wedding here. He was confused and said that my sister-in-law and her fiancé had made the booking for that day. I told him to call them because my house was no longer available. An hour later, my sister-in-law's fiancé came knocking on my door. I answered, and he asked if my sister-in-law was home because she wasn't answering her phone. I said, no, she isn't here because this isn't her house. And he said, maybe there was some confusion here. I'm her fiancé and we have a wedding at this house today. I guess you're her sister-in-law. I saw your photos in the hallway the other day. I smiled and said, you're right, I'm her sister-in-law, but there's more truth I'm going to tell you. Let's start with the basics. This is my house and I live here. My sister-in-law and my in-laws live across town in an apartment. By the way, congratulations on your wedding, but it's no longer happening here because I changed my mind. I don't know what happened after that. Around 9 o'clock in the morning, this princess came banging on my door. I didn't answer. She called Michael, my husband, asking what was going on, saying that I had thrown out the wedding planner. He said that our house was not available and that she should find another place for the wedding. She screamed and pounded on my door asking us to open it. I opened the window and yelled, if you keep pounding on my door, you could end up in jail on your wedding day, if it even happens. She insulted us and called us names for ruining her life. She left after the neighbors threatened to call the police. I blocked her number, but she bombarded Michael, my husband's phone, with obscene voicemails calling him names for not defending his sister. I asked if he was upset, and he said he was upset, but she had brought it on herself. She can't assume everything will be handed to her on a silver platter. She was ungrateful and took us for granted. She told her fiancé that this was her house and planned the wedding here without even asking me for permission. On top of that, she excluded us from the wedding and called me a witch. What does she expect in return? My in-laws didn't take it well. They blame me for tarnishing their reputation. This makes me question their value system, because they were clearly okay with their daughter excluding us, even though the wedding was to be held at my property. As for her wedding, it was canceled that day. My sister-in-law and my in-laws went to see the fiancé's family to ask them to wait a week so they could arrange another venue. I heard that her fiancé called them liars in front of everyone and said he was canceling the wedding and would have to reconsider the relationship. God knows what will happen now. I'm glad to be out of this drama. I have a life to live and a career to excel in. May God bless her and her lies. Update 3. It's been a few days since what was supposed to be my sister-in-law's wedding at my house. As you know, it didn't happen here, but it didn't happen anywhere else either. By the end of the day, the groom decided to call off everything after discovering the lies his ex-fiancée had been telling him. And honestly, I can't blame him. If someone is willing to fabricate this much, there's no telling what else they might lie about in the future. But what matters now is how everyone reacted after all their grand plans crumbled. Let's start with my sister-in-law, who has been crying non-stop since it all fell apart, naturally blaming me for everything. As ridiculous as that is, she seems to believe I'm somehow responsible, even though I wasn't the one deceiving half the world. Her ex-fiancé actually stopped by my house the other day, He apologized for everything, though I assured him there was no reason for him to feel guilty. This wasn't his fault. If anything, I felt like I should apologize to him. In hindsight, maybe I should have warned him about Brittany earlier, but it's not like we ever had a relationship or much communication before. I didn't even have his phone number or know his full name to look him up on social media, but still, I felt bad for him. As for my in-laws, Bob and Linda, they've been calling my husband nonstop to badmouth me, and him. Apparently, he should have done something instead of letting himself be dominated by his wife. Michael is considering blocking them altogether if this keeps up. He's already stopped answering their calls because he's fed up. But honestly, that's between him and his parents. I'm staying out of it. Update 4. It's been a week since my last update, and I really hoped it would be the final one. I have better things to do than waste my time on this mess. I had already done more than enough for Brittany, but of course, she had to push things further. It was Saturday morning. I was at home, enjoying my breakfast, when suddenly there was frantic banging on the front door, accompanied by hysterical screaming. I didn't even need to check. I knew it was her. Her voice was shrill, almost inhuman, like something straight out of a horror movie. She was shouting that she wanted to hit me because I had ruined her wedding and destroyed her relationship by being a selfish witch. My husband, Michael, was out playing tennis with a friend, so I was alone. Meanwhile, she kept pounding on the door, screaming at the top of her lungs, while I calmly sipped my coffee. Luckily, a neighbor heard the commotion and called the police. He even came over to check on me and warned Brittany that the cops were on their way. That finally got her to leave, but the funniest part? She bolted like a criminal, running down the street because she didn't have a car. She had taken an Uber to get here and didn't have time to order another one before the police arrived. After she fled, I stepped outside to talk to my neighbor. A few minutes later, the police showed up. I explained everything, including how she had threatened to hit me. With my neighbor as a witness and security camera footage to back it up, the officers went straight to Bob and Linda's house to look for her. Now, it's late, and my in-laws have, predictably, called Michael yet again. This time, they were yelling about how I had overreacted, demanding to know what I had done to Brittany. Michael, without a word, hung up and blocked them. I know some people might be disappointed that we don't have a final answer on what happened to Brittany. Whether she ended up in jail or not, we have no clue. Bob and Linda were the only ones who could tell us, and frankly, we're past the point of caring. All we know is that we're done with that family, for good.